The U.S. Supreme Court today will hear arguments from businesses today that President Trump's far-reaching tariffs are illegal. So a lot happening, kind of complicated. Scott Hurst is here to help break this down for us on CTV. Scott, the Carney government's budget is set to bring some relief for Canadian companies that are impacted by the tariffs. Let's start there before we move on to the Supreme Court today.
And Nick, as you mentioned, of course, the Liberals need enough support in the House of Commons to pass the budget. And if they don't have that, we might be heading back to another election. But here's a look at the budget and how it really can impact Canadians amid the ongoing trade war and the impact of tariffs. Billions in new spending to counter the economic attacks that are coming from the White House, but a lot of it a longer-term bet. And some of the industry-specific supports already announced, supports that Canadians are aware of. The U.S. trade war taking a significant toll on the Canadian economy. So overall, it is a big spending budget. Billions on capital investments in new infrastructure, competitiveness measures, defense, security, and housing. Strategic Innovation Fund to support the steel industry's transition to new lines of business and strengthen domestic supply chains to the tune of $1 billion. A Buy Canadian mandate for federal projects. Millions in loans for industries such as forestry and softwood lumber sectors, and billions in tax breaks and incentives for multiple sectors hit hard by the ongoing tariff war with the U.S., and $5 billion to a new trade diversification corridor to really ramp up the ongoing supply chain issues. And Nick, as we've heard time and time again from the Prime Minister, a lot of this and a lot of the plan is to diversify trade away from the U.S., as we've seen the U.S. and the Trump administration really upend global trading as we've known it. So really helping to push Canadian products to new markets. But of course, that could take time. Concerns it's ballooning the deficit. And also, Nick, significant concerns there's not enough in there in the immediacy for everyday Canadians dealing with the ongoing cost of living crisis.
Yeah, and of course, that is tied to tariffs as well and the upending of trade. And so today, this is really interesting, and Canadians will likely pay attention, Scott. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear some arguments about the legality of Donald Trump's far-reaching tariffs. What can you tell us about that? Because there are some key distinctions here.
Potentially a big decision from the U.S. Supreme Court that could impact Canadian businesses. And so the Supreme Court will hear arguments on the fate of Trump's so-called reciprocal tariffs. Those are the baseline duties on a whole host of countries, including Canada, and the fentanyl-specific tariffs imposed on Canada that Trump has invoked national emergency powers in order to impose. That is what the Supreme Court will be looking at. However, regardless of the decision, it won't impact all the tariffs that are being that Canada is facing. The decision won't impact the sector-specific tariffs that are really having a hard time for Canadian industries. Of course, the steel and aluminum sectors, the auto industry, copper, as well as lumber. Those tariffs, regardless of the decision coming from the Supreme Court, will remain in effect, Nick. So, a lot on the line when it comes to the potential tariffs that Canada is facing. But regardless of the decision, it won't impact all the tariffs that's impacting Canada right now.
Okay, that's good to know. Good context there. CTV Scott Hurst live for us this morning. Scott, thanks.